The morning sun cast long shadows across the White House lawn as Barack Obama sat in the Oval Office, staring at the phone that had just delivered news that would resonate across the world. Queen Elizabeth II, the longest-reigning British monarch in history, had passed away at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. The date was September 8th, 2022, and the world had lost a figure who had been a constant presence for over 7 decades. Obama leaned back in his chair, memories flooding through his mind. He remembered his first meeting with the Queen in 2009, just months into his presidency. The nervousness he had felt walking into Buckingham Palace, wondering how this grandmother from Illinois would be received by the woman who had met every American president since Harry Truman, except for Lyndon Johnson. Those concerns had quickly melted away when he encountered her warm smile and genuine curiosity about his family. The former president reached for his phone and called his chief of staff. "We need to prepare a statement," he said quietly. "Something meaningful. The Queen deserves more than just diplomatic words." As he spoke, Obama realized this wasn't just about protocol or international relations. This was personal. The Queen had become someone he genuinely respected and admired during their multiple encounters over the years. Michelle walked into the office, having heard the news on the television in the residence. She sat across from her husband, both of them reflecting on the magnitude of the moment. "She was remarkable," Michelle said softly. "I keep thinking about how she made Malia and Sasha feel so special when we visited. She had this way of making everyone feel important, no matter who they were." Obama nodded, remembering how the Queen had insisted on showing his daughters around Buckingham Palace personally, pointing out portraits and sharing stories that brought history to life. She had treated 2 young girls from Chicago as if they were visiting royalty themselves. That memory crystallized something for Obama about who the Queen really was beneath all the ceremony and tradition. The phone rang again. This time, it was his former communications director, now working in the private sector, offering to help craft the statement. "Mr. President," she said, "the whole world is going to be watching what you say. This is a moment that will be remembered." Obama thanked her, but knew he needed to write this himself. Some words couldn't be delegated or polished by committee. He walked to the window overlooking the South Lawn, where he had welcomed the Queen for a state dinner in 2007, before he was president, when he was just a senator. Even then, she had taken time to speak with him personally, asking about his background and his aspirations. She had a gift for making people feel seen and heard, something that Obama, as a politician, understood was incredibly rare and valuable. The weight of the moment settled on him as he realized that an era was truly ending. The Queen had been a bridge between the old world and the new, between tradition and progress. She had witnessed the end of the British Empire and the rise of the Commonwealth, had seen her nation navigate through wars, economic crises, and social revolutions while maintaining dignity and stability. Obama thought about the lessons he had learned from observing her leadership style during their interactions. She never seemed rushed, never appeared flustered by the chaos around her. There was a steadiness to her presence that provided comfort to others. During their private conversations, she had shared insights about leadership that came from decades of experience dealing with prime ministers, world leaders, and the constant pressures of public life. He remembered a particular conversation they had during his 2011 state visit to the United Kingdom. They had been walking through the gardens at Buckingham Palace, away from the cameras and formal protocols. The Queen had asked him about the challenges of raising children in the public eye. Her concern was genuine, drawing from her own experiences with her 4 children and the intense media scrutiny they had faced throughout their lives. "The most important thing," she had told him, "is to remember that they didn't choose this life. We must protect their childhood as much as possible." Those words had stayed with Obama throughout his presidency, influencing how he and Michelle shielded Malia and Sasha from the more intrusive aspects of political life. As the afternoon wore on, Obama began to understand that his tribute needed to capture not just the Queen's public accomplishments, but the person he had come to know. She wasn't just a figurehead or a symbol. She was a woman who had dedicated her entire adult life to service, who had adapted to changing times while maintaining core principles, and who had treated everyone she met with genuine interest and respect. The former president sat down at his desk and began to write, knowing that his words would be part of the historical record of how the world mourned and celebrated the life of Queen Elizabeth II. He wanted to get it right, not just for history, but for the woman who had shown him such kindness and wisdom during their years of acquaintance. Barack Obama's mind wandered to the evening of May 24th, 2011, when he and Michelle had hosted Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip for a state dinner at the White House. The preparation for that event had been unlike anything his staff had ever organized. Every detail was scrutinized, from the menu selection to the seating arrangements, because they understood they were hosting someone who represented centuries of tradition and protocol. What had struck Obama most that evening wasn't the grandeur of the occasion, but the Queen's genuine curiosity about American culture and politics. During the pre-dinner reception, she had asked thoughtful questions about the challenges facing the United States, about his vision for the country, and about how he balanced the demands of leadership with family life. Her questions weren't perfunctory diplomatic small talk. They reflected a mind that remained sharp and engaged despite her advanced age. The dinner itself had been magical. Obama remembered watching the Queen interact with the various guests, from Supreme Court justices to Hollywood celebrities, treating each person with the same level of attention and respect. She had a remarkable ability to make everyone feel important, asking personal questions and remembering details from previous conversations. It was a masterclass in diplomacy and human connection. But perhaps the most memorable moment of that evening had come during Obama's toast. As he spoke about the special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom, he had noticed the Queen listening intently, occasionally nodding in agreement. When he concluded by saying, "May the God save the Queen," she had smiled warmly and raised her glass with genuine appreciation for the gesture. Her response toast had been equally gracious, but what Obama remembered most was how she had spoken about the importance of friendship between nations, emphasizing that relationships between countries ultimately came down to relationships between people. It was a simple but profound observation that reflected her understanding of diplomacy at its most fundamental level. Now, as Obama continued working on his tribute, he thought about how the Queen had embodied the very best qualities of leadership throughout her reign. She had never sought personal glory or tried to overshadow others. Instead, she had provided stability and continuity during times of great change and uncertainty. Her approach to leadership was something Obama had tried to emulate in his own political career. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Joe Biden, calling from Washington. "Barack," the current president said, "I'm working on my own statement about the Queen. I wanted to talk to you about your experiences with her." The two men spent 20 minutes sharing memories and discussing the impact the Queen had on American politics and international relations. Biden reminded Obama of something he had almost forgotten: the Queen's visit to Ground Zero in 2010, where she had laid a wreath to honor the victims of the September 11th attacks. It wasn't a required diplomatic gesture, but she had insisted on making the trip because she felt it was important to show solidarity with the American people during a time of healing. That act of compassion had meant more to many Americans than any formal diplomatic statement could have conveyed. After the call, Obama reflected on the Queen's remarkable ability to use symbolism and gesture to communicate deeper meanings. Every action she took was carefully considered, not because of rigid protocol, but because she understood the power of her position to bring comfort, show respect, or bridge divides. Her presence at Ground Zero had been a powerful reminder that grief and healing transcended national boundaries. Obama remembered another significant moment from their relationship: the Queen's address to the American Congress in 1991 during the presidency of George H.W. Bush. While Obama had been a young law student at the time, he had later studied that speech as an example of how to communicate across cultural and political differences. The Queen had spoken eloquently about shared values and common purposes while acknowledging the unique characteristics of each nation. Years later, when Obama had the opportunity to discuss that speech with the Queen during one of their private conversations, she had reflected on how much both countries had changed since 1991. The world moves so quickly now, she had observed. But the fundamentals of human nature and the need for decent leadership remain constant. It was typical of her wisdom to find the enduring truths amid all the surface changes. As Obama continued writing his tribute, he realized that one of the Queen's greatest gifts had been her ability to make everyone feel connected to something larger than themselves. Whether she was meeting with world leaders, greeting crowds during walkabouts, or hosting state dinners, she had a way of making people feel that they were participating in something meaningful and historic. This quality had been particularly evident during Obama's final official meeting with the Queen in 2016, near the end of his presidency. They had lunch privately at Windsor Castle, and their conversation had ranged from politics to family to the challenges of public service. The Queen had been interested in his post-presidency plans and had offered advice about life after holding the highest office in one's country. The most important thing, she had told him, is to remember that service doesn't end when you leave office. It just takes different forms. Those words had influenced Obama's approach to his post-presidency activities, from his foundation work to his involvement in democratic initiatives around the world. Even in that final conversation, the Queen had continued to be a teacher and mentor. Obama paused in his writing and looked out the window again. The afternoon light was fading, and he knew that around the world, people were grappling with the same sense of loss that he was feeling. The Queen had been a constant presence in their lives, a symbol of stability and continuity in an increasingly chaotic world. Her death marked not just the end of a life, but the end of an era. The memories kept flowing as Barack Obama delved deeper into his reflection on Queen Elizabeth II's extraordinary life and their personal relationship. He thought about the informal moments that had revealed her true character, moments that the public rarely saw, but that had left lasting impressions on those fortunate enough to experience them. During his 2009 visit to London for the G20 summit, Obama had been invited to a private lunch at Buckingham Palace. What was supposed to be a brief courtesy call had turned into a 2-hour conversation that ranged from international affairs to family life. The Queen had been particularly interested in hearing about Malia and Sasha's adjustment to life in the White House, sharing stories about raising her own children in the public eye. "Children need normalcy," she had said, her eyes twinkling with warmth, even when nothing about their circumstances is normal. She had gone on to describe how she had tried to give Charles and Andrew and Edward as typical a childhood as possible, despite the constant presence of security and media attention. Her advice had been practical and heartfelt, coming from someone who truly understood the unique challenges of parenting in the public spotlight. Obama remembered being struck by how the Queen had effortlessly shifted between discussing complex geopolitical issues and sharing grandmother-like concerns about children's well-being. It was a reminder that behind all the ceremonial duties and constitutional responsibilities was a woman who cared deeply about family and human connections. The Queen's sense of humor had also been a revelation to Obama. During that same lunch, she had recounted a story about a security breach at Buckingham Palace, where an intruder had wandered into her bedroom while she was sleeping. Instead of dwelling on the frightening aspects of the incident, she had focused on the absurdity of having a conversation with the confused man while wearing her nightgown. Her ability to find humor in even the most serious situations had been both charming and inspiring. As Obama continued crafting his tribute, he thought about how the Queen had navigated the massive social and political changes during her 7-decade reign. She had ascended to the throne in 1952 when Britain was still rebuilding from World War II and maintaining a vast empire. By the time Obama met her, the world had been transformed by technology, globalization, and shifting power dynamics, yet she had remained relevant and respected throughout these changes. During one of their conversations, Obama had asked her about the secret to adapting to change while maintaining core principles. Her answer had been characteristically thoughtful. You must be willing to learn and grow, but never lose sight of what truly matters. The forms may change, but the substance of good leadership remains constant. It's about serving others, not yourself. This wisdom had resonated deeply with Obama, who had faced his own challenges adapting to rapid social and technological changes during his presidency. The Queen's example had shown him that it was possible to embrace progress while honoring tradition, to modernize without losing one's authentic voice. Obama also reflected on the Queen's relationship with the media and public scrutiny. Throughout her reign, she had faced intense coverage of both her official duties and her family's personal lives. Yet she had maintained her dignity and privacy while still fulfilling her public role. During their conversations, she had offered insights about dealing with criticism and maintaining perspective when under constant observation. The key, she had told him, is to remember that the office is larger than the person holding it. The criticism may sting, but it's usually directed at the position rather than you personally. And the praise, well, that belongs to the office as well. This perspective had helped Obama navigate some of the more challenging moments of his presidency, when media coverage became particularly harsh or unfair. The Queen's commitment to duty had been perhaps her most remarkable characteristic. Obama thought about how she had carried out thousands of engagements over the decades, meeting with world leaders, visiting hospitals and schools, attending ceremonial events, always with grace and apparent genuine interest. He had witnessed this firsthand during their various encounters, noticing how she gave her full attention to every person she met, regardless of their status or importance. During his 2011 state visit to the United Kingdom, Obama had observed the Queen during a reception for Commonwealth leaders. She had spent time with each delegation, asking specific questions about their country's challenges and achievements. Her preparation was evident in the detailed knowledge she displayed about each nation, but it was her genuine curiosity and warmth that had made the strongest impression on the attendees. Obama remembered a particularly moving moment during that reception when the Queen had spoken privately with a leader of a small island nation that had recently suffered from a devastating hurricane. She had expressed personal concern for the recovery efforts and had asked specific questions about the rebuilding process. It wasn't a photo opportunity or a formal diplomatic exchange. It was one human being genuinely caring about another's struggles. This capacity for empathy had been evident in all of the Queen's interactions with the Obama family. When Michelle had initially worried about protocol and making mistakes during their visits, the Queen had quickly put her at ease. "We're all just people," she had said with a smile. "The important thing is that we treat each other with kindness and respect." The Queen's treatment of Malia and Sasha had been particularly special. During their 2009 visit to London, she had taken the girls on a personal tour of Buckingham Palace, showing them rooms that weren't typically open to visitors and sharing stories about the palace's history. She had treated them not as burdens to be endured during a diplomatic visit, but as honored guests whose curiosity and excitement delighted her. Obama smiled as he remembered how the Queen had encouraged Sasha to sit in one of the throne chairs, despite the mortified expressions of the palace staff. "It's just a chair," she had said with a laugh. "And life's too short not to have a little fun when you can." That moment had perfectly captured her ability to balance respect for tradition with understanding of what truly mattered in human interactions. As evening approached, Barack Obama found himself thinking about the broader historical significance of Queen Elizabeth II's reign and how she had influenced not just Britain, but the entire world. Her death marked the end of what historians would likely call the Elizabethan Age, a period that had witnessed unprecedented global transformation while she provided a steady, reassuring presence. Obama reflected on how the Queen had skillfully navigated the decolonization of the British Empire, helping to transform it into the Commonwealth of Nations. This transition could have been marked by bitterness and conflict, but her personal touch and genuine respect for different cultures had helped maintain relationships even as political structures changed. During their conversations, she had spoken proudly about the Commonwealth's evolution from empire to partnership. "It's rather remarkable," she had once told Obama, "how relationships can deepen even as formal ties change. Sometimes letting go of control actually strengthens bonds." This observation had stuck with Obama as he considered his own approach to international relations and the importance of treating other nations as equals rather than subordinates. The Queen's role in the Northern Ireland peace process had been another example of her subtle but significant influence. While she hadn't been directly involved in the negotiations, her willingness to meet with former IRA leaders and her historic visit to the Republic of Ireland in 2011 had provided crucial symbolic support for the peace efforts. Obama had discussed this with her during one of their meetings, impressed by her courage in taking personal risks for the greater good. "Peace requires someone to be willing to take the first step," she had said. "Sometimes that step is symbolic rather than substantive, but symbols matter more than people realize." Her insight into the power of symbolic gestures had influenced Obama's own approach to diplomacy, particularly in his efforts to improve relations with Cuba and Iran. Obama also thought about how the Queen had modernized the monarchy while preserving its essential character. She had opened Buckingham Palace to public tours, allowed television cameras into royal ceremonies, and gradually made the royal family more accessible to ordinary people. Yet she had done this without diminishing the dignity or mystery that made the monarchy meaningful to many people. During his 2016 visit to Windsor Castle, Obama had asked her about the challenges of modernizing ancient institutions. Her response had been typically thoughtful. "Change is inevitable, but it doesn't have to be destructive. The trick is to identify what's truly essential and preserve that while allowing everything else to evolve naturally." This philosophy had guided the Queen through numerous crises during her reign, from family scandals to political upheavals. Obama had observed how she weathered these storms by staying focused on her core duties while adapting her methods to changing circumstances. Her handling of the aftermath of Princess Diana's death in 1997 had been a masterclass in responsive leadership under pressure. The Queen's relationship with technology had also fascinated Obama. Despite her advanced age, she had embraced new communication tools and social media platforms as ways to connect with younger generations. During his final official visit with her, she had shown him photos and videos from recent engagements that she had shared on the royal family's social media accounts. "It's quite extraordinary how these new tools allow us to reach people directly," she had said, scrolling through comments from around the world. "Young people especially appreciate being able to engage with us in their own language, so to speak." Her willingness to learn and adapt had been inspiring to Obama, who sometimes struggled with rapidly evolving technology himself. Obama thought about the Queen's influence on women's leadership during a time when female leaders were rare. When she became queen in 1952, there were very few women in positions of significant political power anywhere in the world. Her success and longevity had helped pave the way for other female leaders, demonstrating that women could be effective in roles traditionally held by men. During their conversations, the Queen had occasionally reflected on the challenges she faced as a young woman suddenly thrust into a position of enormous responsibility. "People didn't expect much from a 25-year-old woman," she had admitted. "I suppose that worked to my advantage in some ways." The bar was set rather low. Her self-deprecating humor masked what Obama recognized as incredible strength and determination. The Queen's commitment to environmental conservation had been another topic of discussion between them. Long before climate change became a mainstream political issue, she had been quietly implementing sustainable practices at royal properties and supporting conservation efforts. Her passion for the natural world had been evident in every conversation they had about environmental topics. "We're merely stewards," she had said during a discussion about land conservation. "Our job is to leave things better than we found them for future generations." This philosophy had aligned closely with Obama's own environmental priorities and had reinforced his conviction that environmental protection was a moral imperative, not just a policy preference. Obama paused in his writing to consider how to capture the Queen's global impact in his tribute. She had been more than just Britain's monarch. she had been a symbol of stability and continuity for people around the world. Her Christmas broadcasts have been watched by millions of people who weren't British subjects, but who found comfort in her messages of hope and resilience. The Queen's handling of personal tragedy had also been instructive to Obama. She had faced the death of her beloved husband, Prince Philip, in 2021, the public breakdown of several of her children's marriages, and various family scandals, all while maintaining her public duties and personal dignity. Her example had shown Obama that true leadership sometimes meant carrying on despite personal pain. During their last conversation, the Queen had spoken about legacy and what she hoped to be remembered for. "I hope people will say that I tried to do my duty," she had said simply. "Everything else is rather beyond my control." This humble assessment of a life of extraordinary service had moved Obama deeply and had influenced his own thinking about how to measure the success of a public career. As the sun set on September 8th, 2022, Barack Obama finally completed his tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. The words had come slowly, carefully chosen to capture not just his personal memories, but the broader impact of her remarkable life. He read through the statement one final time, ensuring that every sentence reflected the genuine respect and admiration he felt for the woman who had reigned longer than any British monarch in history. The tribute began with a simple acknowledgement of the magnitude of the loss. Today, the world mourns the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, whose steady leadership and gracious demeanor provided comfort and stability to millions of people around the world for more than 7 decades. Obama wanted to immediately establish the global significance of her death, while hinting at the personal qualities that had made her so beloved. He continued by sharing his personal experiences with the Queen, describing their first meeting and how she had immediately put him at ease despite the formal protocol surrounding their encounter. "From our first meeting, I was struck by Her Majesty's warmth, wisdom, and genuine interest in people from all walks of life," he wrote. "She had an extraordinary ability to make everyone she met feel valued and important." Obama included specific memories that illustrated the Queen's character, such as her kindness to Malia and Sasha during their visits to London. He wanted readers to understand that beneath all the ceremony and tradition was a woman who cared deeply about people, especially children. "Her Majesty's grace extended to our daughters, whom she treated with the same courtesy and interest she showed to world leaders," he noted. The tribute also acknowledged the Queen's historic significance as a leader and symbol of continuity. Obama wrote about how she had guided Britain through decades of change while maintaining the dignity and relevance of the monarchy. Her Majesty's reign spanned an era of unprecedented change, yet she remained a constant source of stability and wisdom throughout it all, he observed. Obama was particularly careful to highlight the Queen's role in strengthening the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. He described how her visits to America and her interactions with multiple American presidents had helped maintain the special bond between the two nations. The Queen understood that relationships between nations ultimately depend on relationships between people, and she excelled at building those personal connections that make diplomacy possible, he wrote. The tribute included reflections on the Queen's approach to leadership and service. Obama wrote about how she had demonstrated that true leadership meant putting duty before personal preference and serving others rather than oneself. Her Majesty's example showed us that leadership is not about seeking attention or acclaim, but about quiet, consistent service to others, he noted. Obama also addressed the Queen's evolution as a leader, acknowledging how she had modernized the monarchy while preserving its essential character. He wrote about her willingness to embrace change and new technologies while maintaining core values and traditions. The Queen understood that institutions must adapt to remain relevant, but she never lost sight of the fundamental principles that give them meaning, he observed. The tribute touched on the Queen's global influence beyond her role as Britain's monarch. Obama wrote about how she had become a symbol of dignity and grace for people around the world, transcending national boundaries and political differences. Her Majesty's influence extended far beyond the Commonwealth, inspiring people everywhere with her example of dedicated service and unwavering commitment to duty, he noted. As Obama prepared to release the statement, he thought about how his words would join countless other tributes from world leaders, ordinary citizens, and everyone whose lives have been touched by the Queen's presence. He wanted his tribute to stand out not for its eloquence, but for its authenticity and the genuine affection it conveyed. The statement concluded with a reflection on the Queen's lasting legacy and the lessons she had taught through her example. Her Majesty's legacy will endure not just in the institution she served, but in the countless lives she touched and the example she set for leaders everywhere, Obama wrote. She showed us that true greatness lies not in seeking power for its own sake, but in using whatever platform we have to serve others and make the world a little better than we found it. Obama added a personal note about what the Queen's friendship had meant to him and his family. Michelle, and I will always be grateful for Her Majesty's kindness to our family and for the wisdom she shared with us during our years of public service, he wrote. Her memory will continue to inspire us and millions of others around the world. The final paragraph of the tribute looked toward the future while honoring the past. As we mourn Her Majesty's passing, we also celebrate a life of extraordinary service and dedication, Obama wrote. The Queen's example reminds us that leadership is ultimately about service, and that the greatest among us are those who spend their lives making others better. May her memory be a blessing to all who strive to follow her example. After completing the statement, Obama reflected on the broader meaning of this moment in history. The Queen's death marked not just the end of a remarkable life, but the closing of a chapter in the story of the modern world. She had been the last remaining link to the pre-war era, the last leader who remembered when the world was divided into empires rather than nation-states. Yet Obama also recognized that the Queen's influence would continue long after her death. The example she had set of dignified service, gracious leadership, and unwavering commitment to duty would inspire future generations of leaders. Her legacy lived not just in the institution she had served, but in the countless lives she had touched and the standard she had set for public service. As Obama prepared to share his tribute with the world, he felt confident that he had honored both his personal relationship with the Queen and her broader historical significance. The words came from his heart, reflecting genuine admiration for a woman who had dedicated her entire adult life to serving others. In a world often marked by division and conflict, Queen Elizabeth II had been a unifying figure whose grace and dignity had transcended political and cultural boundaries. The tribute would become part of the historical record of how the world mourned and celebrated the life of Queen Elizabeth II. But for Obama, it was also a personal farewell to someone who had been both a mentor and a friend, whose wisdom and kindness had enriched his own understanding of leadership and service.